Yeah. Hello, my friends! How are you doing today? Nintendo recently gave us a brand new traditional Nintendo Direct presentation, which is a sentence I cannot believe I'm saying right now. One of the games announced was the latest 3D Zelda remaster. The Wii U got 2 remasters of its own, and the 3DS too as well, so it was about time for Switch to join the party. Unfortunately, unlike those 4 other titles, the Switch's Zelda remaster is a bit more, divisive. They were met with naught but glee and laughter and much merriment, but if you're new to Skyward Sword, you might have noticed a considerably less enthusiastic response from much of the community, myself included. That's because Skyward Sword is without a doubt the most controversial 3D Zelda. Plenty of people absolutely adore the game, obviously. I mean, it's a Zelda. There's only so much Nintendo can mess up. But there are also a lot of other people out there with a very wide range of opinions on the game, landing anywhere between slight disappointment and downright hatred. The long list of specific issues people have with the game will have to wait for another day, but suffice it to say, it's basically a guarantee that a significant amount of the people who end up buying Skyward Sword HD will be let down by it. Or even straight up dislike it. That's just the nature of the game, and Nintendo wouldn't be able to truly iron out its divisive elements without completely remaking it. However, there are some things they can do to reduce that number of disappointed players. As with many Nintendo games I've criticized rather heavily over the years, paying very close attention to how the player interacts with the game and doing strategic little touch-ups could make a world of difference. I'm not sure how much work Nintendo is willing to do to touch up Skyward Sword, but here are some things that I think are absolutely necessary if they want to ensure the game is enjoyed by as many people as possible. And no, this video is not just a lame excuse for me to complain about Skyward Sword. That's, why would you think that? This first thing isn't necessarily something Nintendo needs to change about the original game, but more the way they need to execute a change they've already announced. Along with the reveal, Nintendo announced that the game would provide the option to swing your sword with the right analog stick instead of using motion controls. They framed it as a way to allow handheld play, and that's certainly an important factor, but if we're completely honest with ourselves, we know that this is a good move for other reasons. A tremendous number of players were put off by the original's mandatory motion controls. It used the Wii Motion Plus and required constant motion inputs for the sword and basically every other tool at your disposal. This was a big annoyance in itself for some people, and a straight-up deal-breaker for less patient folks who did a lot of wild swinging and found themselves having to recalibrate their controller constantly. And geez, that's not even considering the accessibility issue. How many people were literally unable to play the latest game in their favorite series because it required precise motion controls? Basically, the controls were a big barrier to entry, so giving players traditional options should go a long way here. But the thing is that this needs to be properly executed. Multiple Switch games have provided options to better suit either docked or handheld play. But bafflingly, sometimes they've locked these options behind one mode or the other. On Switch, both Super Mario Galaxy and Captain Toad Treasure Tracker use a gyro-controlled cursor to replace the respective pointer and touch controls of the originals. In handheld mode, one must instead use the touchscreen. And for some bizarre reason, using the gyro cursor instead of the touchscreen is simply not an option. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, same thing. Docked, you gotta fling your Joy-Con like an agitated spider monkey to throw a Pokeball. Handheld, you can use a lovely, intuitive, convenient gyro cursor. And no, you cannot use the gyro cursor in docked mode. I think you get the point I'm trying to make here. Using the control stick to swing the sword in Skyward Sword HD cannot be exclusively tied to handheld mode. It absolutely cannot. I can't stress enough that people need to be given the option to play exactly how they want in whatever mode they want. This is going to be one of those make or break things for a significant number of people, and there are few things a game company can do that are more foolish than falling into a make or break scenario as avoidable as not including a simple control option. Fortunately, we have gotten some evidence that the game does indeed allow these options, but until I get explicit confirmation, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Onto the game design itself though, Skyward Sword's got quite a lot of controversial sequences that could stand to be a little more palatable. When remastering Wind Waker, Nintendo most notably made changes to a quest near the end of the game where you got to collect Triforce pieces. I was surprised to discover that so many people hated this quest because I'd never had a problem with it, but it was no doubt a very wise decision on Nintendo's part to change it. They cleaned it up and streamlined it a bit, and the end result was a game that was much more agreeable to general audiences. It was only a good thing. Honestly, Skyward Sword is going to be a lot trickier to clean up than that. And as I said, I'm not sure how much work they're willing to put in, or how much they even could do without making some drastic changes. However, there are a number of annoying sequences they should at least attempt to refine. I won't go into a ton of details, there's no real need for that, but basically, the game's got a surprising number of game enders. You know, like you're playing a game and maybe you're having fun or maybe you're really annoyed, but at some point you reach a sequence that's either too hard, too frustrating to keep trying, or simply too unfun to even bother with anymore. That's a game ender, and ask around why people didn't finish Skyward Sword and you'll get a number of different answers. A boss you can't figure out how to hit because the controls aren't working properly. A different boss that you have to fight 3 times despite it being the most stressful boss in the game. Returning to old areas for agonizing fetch quests and games of hide and seek. Stealth missions where you have no sword and you have to collect a million things, and if you get hit once you have to start all over. I mean, gosh, just look at this Twitter poll I did. Look at how many people didn't bother finishing the game. I hope this isn't too harsh, but sometimes Skyward Sword feels like a game that wants you to quit. That obviously wasn't Nintendo's intention, so they need to clean some of this stuff up. I don't really know what they might be able to do in some of these cases beyond just making sequences easier or simpler, but whatever the answers are, they need to find them. It's a little tough because challenge is generally a good thing, and players like myself especially enjoy actually having to try when playing a Nintendo game. But it's a fine line between challenging and simply frustrating, and they gotta find it if they want people to finish their game this time around. In the same vein, another off-putting thing about Skyward Sword is how little it values the player's time. When I played Twilight Princess on the Wii, there was one problem with it that I was convinced had to be unintentional. When I picked up any kind of rupee other than green for the first time, it would give me this little "you got a rupee" thing. It would do this once for every color. Other Zeldas have done this, so, it made sense. But whenever I turned the game off and back on again, these would reset, and I would have to listen to them all over again. Alright, this is definitely a glitch. They just didn't get to iron this out before the game shipped, I'm sure. So Skyward Sword comes along, and no, they haven't fixed the issue. They've made it worse! Now, not only do rupees give you the little notification every time you turn the game on, but so do the dozens of bugs and materials you collect. Apparently, this was 100% intentional. And anyone who thinks this is a nitpick, this was back in the day when game consoles didn't sleep. You had to boot up your game completely fresh every single time you wanted to play it. And throughout the course of a 50-hour game, yeah, I'm afraid to say this is less of a problem and more a symptom of a bigger time-wasting problem the game has. Interacting with NPCs is a very necessary part of the experience, and every time it comes with these long, endlessly repeated spiels. It wears you down with every interaction, so you get to the point where you're honestly wondering if it's worth heading back to Skyloft to fill up on potions, or even picking up something that's lying right next to you because you just don't want to hear it anymore. All of this can be fixed up and streamlined, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of work either. It's a very minor tweak that would make a massive difference. And golly, you want to talk about game enders? What better way to make someone want to quit than by not hooking them in the first place? Twilight Princess has been heavily criticized for how long the game's opening is, and this is another problem that was apparently not a problem in the eyes of the devs and actually a purposeful decision. It takes a long time to get a sword and really kick off your adventure in Skyward Sword. Once again, I really didn't mind personally because when I'm engrossed in a Zelda game, I can be pretty patient, but I'm not going to expect the same level of patience in everyone. Let's look back at that poll. See how many people couldn't even be bothered to get through the opening? People who are less interested in the story just don't need a tutorial to last this long. Such a thing can be extremely off-putting. This is unfortunately another instance where I'm not sure exactly what they could do to fix it, seeing as the opening follows a bunch of very specific story beats. But if they can manage to make a couple of those beats pass a little more quickly, they're going to have an easier time properly hooking the audience. Convincing a person to spend that much money on your game, then boring them into quitting before it's even started, is just such a waste. Okay, Sort of on the subject of time wasting, but also on the subject of so many different unpleasant things. Skyward Sword's got one more very, very big problem that was, once again, entirely intentional. Though, very fortunately, this is one that should be relatively easy to fix. I'm gonna have to try my best to not get too worked up here. People complain about Navi. Navi, whose most egregious crime is going, hey, every 20 or 30 minutes and flashing a little thing and you gotta talk to her to dismiss it. That Navi is an angel. Navi is a saint. This thing is a monster. Fi perfectly represents everything that was so deeply wrong with Nintendo before they shifted gears with the Switch. Not respecting your time? Oh, she loves that. But even more than that, she loves not respecting your intelligence. Because you are a baby, and Fi is your mommy, and it is her job to coddle you every step of this adventure. She stops the game to talk to you constantly. She explicitly tells you where to go and what to do, and even how to solve puzzles before you even get a chance to try. Even late in the game, she thinks she has to spell out every problem for you, because at one point Nintendo was terrified by the idea of the player having to use even one little brain cell. Fi has optional stuff to say like Navi, where you have to talk to her to dismiss the little flashing icon, but in this case, the notification noise is horrible and it never stops. She continually gets on your case when the controller's battery is low, even if you're just trying to get as much as you can out of it before you change it. If you drop below 3 hearts, she never ceases to remind you of that fact. A little dweep dweep noise was bad enough, but now you got someone right in your ear going, hey, your hearts are low, you might want to get some hearts, hey, you listening to me? So you talk to her to dismiss it, then you get a heart, but lose it again, and hey, your hearts are low, hey! Oh, but I could go on. Basically, Fi is a problem. A big problem. And now that we have Breath of the Wild, it's clear that Nintendo no longer feels we need babysitting. We are capable of learning some things on our own, or through natural necessity rather than explicit instruction. So cool it with the repeated alerts, maybe shorten some conversations, and as far as interrupting the game to tell you what to do goes, just straight up chop like 95% of it out of the game. It's not something that needs to be fixed or preserved, just get rid of it. Make that trigger just not happen. They could have like an assist mode or something where she pops up like normal, but even that isn't necessary because the game's got this other thing where you can watch videos showing you exactly what to do whenever you want, so why bother? Skyward Sword has plenty of flaws that I didn't notice until my second playthrough, but Fi was a special case. First time, kind of annoying. Second time, I wanted to throw my Wii into a wood chipper. And for the last time, I will say, if Nintendo wants the game to actually stick this time around, if they want it to join the ranks of Link's other treasured adventures and not just spark arguments whenever it's brought up, Nintendo needs to tell Fi what my grandma told me when I couldn't stop complaining to her about Skyward Sword. Shut your little blue mouth. As I've very helpfully offered many times by now, it wouldn't be possible to completely fix Skyward Sword. It was created using a design philosophy that I cannot agree with on many levels. But there are moments of brilliance in there, and the game has definitely got its fair share of die-hard fans. Even if I'm one of its critics, I still think there's enough good stuff to try and save. With a few tweaks here and there, Nintendo can give the thing the second chance it... I don't want to say deserves, but sure, why not? The second chance it deserves. But what about you? Do you think Skyward Sword needs some touching up? Or do you think it's perfectly fine the way it is and actually take offense to the great number of disparaging comments I've made about it in this video? I know it's a hot topic, so let's try not to go too crazy down in the comments. Although, all comments count as engagement, which the algorithm loves, so in that case, give me 100% of your thoughts on Skyward Sword. And while you're at it, throw in Origami King, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Star Fox Zero, and the entire Star Wars sequel trilogy.